So, it's been a while since the last episode of turbocharging the Micra. I took a break from working on the turbo and did a few other little things to the car, such as welding the sill. But today we'll be finally starting to finish off the turbo. Although the turbo is on, the engine still runs like a naturally aspirated engine. However, in this video we'll be installing an intercooler and some intake piping to get the charged air from the turbo to the intake. So, first of all, we got to mount an intercooler. The intercooler we'll be mounting is this one right here. Now, I don't think you were expecting this. You're probably expecting some full aluminium custom-made intercooler. That is not the case. So this is the stock intercooler for a Mark V Volkswagen Polo, and there's a few reasons I picked it. First of all, this was €60, brand new. It's a Volkswagen Audi part, so they're very common, not very expensive. It's an off-the-shelf part, so when I break it, because it's not if, it's when, the car will be back on the road in pretty much no time, especially compared to if we were to replace a custom-made intercooler. Now, the inlet and the outlet both are 55mm. I'll be using 57mm for the rest of the intake pipe, so it's very close. It will work with the silicone hoses I'm planning on using. Also, the angle of the inlet and the outlet, both very convenient for what I'm trying to do here. You can see there's a slide angle. You can see there's a slide angle to this, which is almost identical to the angle of the turbo. You'll see why that's good very soon. And also the angle of this, 90 degree, very convenient, will go right here behind the intercooler somewhere and then go up and into the intake. And obviously I wouldn't have picked it otherwise, but it is pretty much the perfect size for the front of the car. Now, pretty much every single turbo Micra build I've seen consisted of cutting this and this out in order to route intake pipes through there and up and to the engine, and that's exactly what I'm going to do now. And with that done, we now just about have enough space to fit the intercooler. So I've mocked up the intercooler using two zip ties here and here, and I think the permanent solution for mounting the intercooler will be to use a bracket going from that hole to the plastic piece of the intercooler, and same thing over here. Now, this and this are what the bumper sits on. As you can see, when I put the bumper on, that little tab there slides on top of that platform, and well, actually, hold on, that doesn't look too bad. Anyway, back to the point, we'll be getting rid of them and I'll try to replace them with some custom parts. Reason for that being this right here. As you might have been able to tell, we are missing this part from here. And the reason for that is that the intercooler wouldn't really fit. It hit against that and it just wouldn't really work out. So my idea, get rid of that, make a custom part there and do the same thing there, join them together with a bar, and from the bar have a little triangle section going here, and that will sort the mounting of the intercooler and also the bonnet being able to close, because at the moment it can't. I did actually have a good bit of content on the process of how I made this front brace for the car, but because it's not really on topic of this video and it's just a solution to a problem that shouldn't have existed in the first place, we're just going to skip ahead and get back on topic with actually mounting the intercooler and running the intake pipes. So the front brace has been painted, and while the paint was drying I made two little brackets, one there and one there. I've cut a bit of plastic off the intercooler, shaved it down, and the intercooler is now mounted onto the front of the car. I haven't painted this bracket yet, I'm only test fitting it. There used to be a bit of plastic on the other side too. I cut that off, sanded it down, and there used to be two little pegs on the bottom of the intercooler. Cut them off, sanded them down, and now the intercooler fits. It is a bit offset because it's the only way I could get it to fit on the car, but it doesn't need to look 100% amazing as long as it works. However, we are running into a bit of an issue now because the bumper kind of hits the intercooler, so I'm gonna have to do a bit of drilling, cutting and grinding plastic off the bumper later. We finally got the bumper to clear the intercooler. Both of the brackets are done and painted and fully mounted. One last thing I will do is make a little bracket going from here to this thin sheet of aluminium on the bottom of the intercooler. I'm gonna drill it, tap it, and then we're going to have a bracket holding it in place and stopping it from pivoting. So the intercooler is fitted and in its final position. I'm very happy with how it sits and where it is. Next up, we need to take care of all the piping from the turbo to the intercooler and to the engine. So it's actually been close to, if not over 2 months since I recorded the last part of the video. But I finally ordered the silicone hoses for the intake system, and here they are. So here's what we're going to do. The throttle body is a 70mm. So I've got 90 degree 70 to 57. That's going to kick it this way. Long tube into here, 90 degree going down, 57 to 57 into there, the intercooler. So 57 into 54-ish. This is what I'm worried about. I'm going to have to modify that outlet on the compressor housing, and it is a very tight angle. I'm going to try do it with one 90 degree into another 90 degree with the reducer in the middle. It's not going to be easy. And then as for the actual air filter intake, that's going to be a bit of a very interesting and questionable surprise. So basically, this right here is what we're working with. Easy stuff out of the way first. You can see I've already tried cutting this to make it shorter. This is going to go right there, but it's still too tall, so I need to cut it a bit more because it's hitting the bonnet. I don't have any fancy tools, but this box cutter is going to do it, so I'm just going to cut a bit more off. Alright, it's not pretty, but it's definitely going to do the job. And we're going to put that on there and tighten it. We're going to have a tube running from that into a 90 here, but to know where this needs to be, we're going to install the 90 from the intercooler up. Alright, there we go. So we're going to need a very short tube there into this, and then a tube joining these two. You'd expect me to use aluminium like piping for the intake, but I have some stainless steel laying around with no use for it. So for now, we're not going to use this because it has holes in it, but we're going to use this. So here we have a 20cm piece of stainless with some absolutely beautiful welds there, just to stop the silicone hose from popping out. So basically the clamp is going to tighten just under that, and that's going to prevent it from slipping off. So this is going to go into there, and this 40cm piece is going to, it's basically literally just the same as this, but joining these two. Right. Now we're talking. So let's put that in, and I'm actually looking forward to seeing it kind of coming together. Alright, so it's definitely coming together, but unfortunately I did leave the hardest bit last. First of all, this is going to get grinded down, and this 45 is going to go onto there. It is going to be a very sketchy fit, but I think I can make it work.
And then the 45 can go 38.
51 to 50.
There's no alternating. Very short.
But let's just see if we can get it done. So 2 days later, that did not end up working. However, I've made this little contraption, which you can see here, and hopefully this does work. So I've ditched the 90 degree 54mm bend, and I've just gone for a bit of straight that goes into a 57mm pipe, which is blocked off and has a 90 degree 38mm steel tube going into that 38 there, and that connects up to the turbo. Wastegate is hooked up, that little pressure line is hooked up, everything is back on. We're pretty much ready to turn it on and see if it's making any boost. So under normal like revving with like no real load on the engine because the car's not moving anywhere, I didn't see it make boost. However, I did test this. So there's a clutch switch. If I put the clutch in and floor it, it's going to have launch control. So have a look here at Tuner Studio and look at the KPA. There's a bit of boost in there. Right, so that is a huge success. However, we now have a lot of work to do. The tune we're currently running only goes up to 100 kPa, which is atmosphere. And now that we have boost, we need to add another maybe 5 tables to get around to 150. I'm expecting to run about 6, 7, maybe a bit less PSI boost. So roughly 150, we need to create a new map. And I'm just going to go do some research and make a guess at what all of these values should be for VE, spark timing, AFR target, and yeah. That right there is 11 psi of boost. I said originally I was going to run 7 psi, but looks like the stock wastegate has different plans. So this is the map I've come up with. The values are fairly okay for now. The AFR is fairly decent until you get to 5,000 RPM. Boost starts to kick in from 2,000 RPM. And it keeps going and keeps going, getting higher and higher until you get to about 5,000 RPM where this happens. There's a huge spike in AFR and the engine loses all power. I've messed around with the values here, putting them super high, but no matter what, it keeps spiking up to 18 AFR at 5,000 RPM. I don't think that's because of spark timing. Like, it loses all power, but that is not down to spark timing. As you can clearly see, there's an issue with the AFR. And I think that issue is the stock injectors and the stock fuel pump. So I've ordered a high pressure fuel pump, and I'll be looking into replacing the stock injectors for some bigger injectors, and hopefully that will fix the issue, because I've actually opened the wastegate and tried it again and it runs perfectly fine past 5,000 RPM when there's no boost, which would make sense because it doesn't require as much fuel. So we need bigger injectors, which I have right here. This is an injector from a K12 Micra with the CR14DE engine, and ththese are 216 cc's per minute compared to the stock ones, which are 149. However, I'm going to dedicate installing these along with a high pressure fuel pump and a boost pressure gauge and an oil pressure gauge for the next video in the series. So for now, let's just sort out the intake, because the only thing we have left to do is run a pipe from the turbo into some sort of filter intake. This here is the 38mm hose that I wanted to use for the intake, and this is a Tesco funnel. To say that this bumper is in mint condition would be a very big lie. So I don't see why we shouldn't just cut this up and mold the funnel into the bumper and have a big, like, a cold air intake won't get much colder than this. And when was the last time you've seen a Tesco funnel molded into a front bumper used as an intake? I might regret this. What have I done? Right, the power's gone now, so we're doing this. So after doing all of that by hand yesterday, here we are the next day, and the funnel fits fairly decent in this big, massive, ugly hole we've cut into the bumper. There we have our bumper air intake. Alright, now all there's left to do is add the air filter, which is gonna be this for now. That's the original filter from the funnel, which we are gonna temporarily use because yes, water can still get in, yes, sand could probably still get in, so that is definitely not the final solution. So with this absolutely stupid and unreliable air intake done, we can probably wrap up the video now. We've put all the turbo pipes together from the turbo to the intercooler to the engine. The engine is finally pushing boost after like 2 years of wanting to turbocharge this car. It is finally turbocharged, kind of. We still need to work on the tune and a lot of other things, but we'll get that done eventually. In the next video, we're going to be installing the boost, oil pressure gauges and the bigger injectors along with the high pressure fuel pump. So make sure to subscribe to see those videos, or don't. I don't really care. I mean, please do, but